Poke.
I thought I heard it click out, but I wasn't sure. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I'm Robert Winfrey. I am back from vacation last week when you got to hear Mark have a mild psychotic break. Mark, how are your imaginary friends?
Oh, my friends look out for me like family. And I tell you what.
Anyway, yeah, I'm back this week. Tonight we are reviewing Pacific Rim Uprising, the sequel to the movie from a few years ago, Pacific Rim, which was at the time the best Transformers movie, pretty much unequivocally. And then, of course, we'll go through our regular shtick, but that's the bread and butter of what's on the show tonight. So let me introduce Mark again, because he's here and he's on pills now, so you won't have to listen to him hosting imaginary conversations. I kid. For those of you who don't know, last week there were some technical difficulties that resulted in you only hearing Mark's third of the podcast when he reviewed
I'm an
Tomb
idiot, is what happened. I did not have... You would think that was the first time I used the thing. It wasn't, and yet I still screwed it up.
Hey, that exact same thing happened to me the first time I tried to do the MMA show with Jeff Harris. It sounded like I was talking to myself. So you have nothing but my sympathy, and I'm glad the antipsychotic medication is kicking in. So how you doing? Apart from, the recent expenditure and your 48-hour hold at a local facility.
I'm terrific.
I'm not letting this die.
Let's continue to make Baker Act jokes at my expense in a field that I actually work in.
That is the plan.
God damn you. Damn you, Winfrey. That should be the name of the show. No, I'm doing good. I went for my walk tonight. I really enjoyed Pacific Rim. I'm probably going to take the kids to go see Ready Player One and hopefully not have a mild stroke having to deal with them at the movie theaters. That isn't a cartoon. You'll be happy to know, Robert Winfrey, and I don't want to do 20 minutes of opening shtick because we've been told we're a little long with the tooth. But I have to tell you, before we get started with our Pacific Rim review, I did not go see Sherlock Gnomes this past weekend.
I'm so proud of you. You've made the world a better place.
Yep, I wanted to bring my kids. My kids had said they wanted to see it, but Sunday came and went, and nobody got off their ass to go to the theater, and I wasn't pushing it, because I could hear you in my ear going, "What? If you're the only one pushing to go see this movie, you're wrong." So I didn't. And instead, I sat on the couch and I rewatched Thor Ragnarok. That movie gets better and better.
That's almost as bad.
That movie gets better and better with each viewing. But speaking
that is absolutely untrue.
but speaking of better and better...
No, you are literally the only person I've heard say that. Everyone else I know that has seen it has said on repeat viewings it gets worse. It does not hold up.
Oh, no, you know what? It's made me decide to go out and watch Flash Gordon. And I think we might be getting together a commentary for the Flash Gordon movie from the early 80s. So that check that out when it drops.
Part of that.
Of course you won't. You're Mr. No Fun Time. But here is Mr. Fun Time himself, a man from Canada, a friend of the show, Mr. David Wright. How do you do, sir?
I'm doing good, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. We had you on our last Jedi show. You were a fun guest with some really interesting insights. So
thank you.
I have to ask, you requested this time, sir. What gives? What made you decide of all the shows that we've done that this is the one where you had a burning desire?
Well, what can I say? I love giant robots.
All right, fair enough.
I mean, my particular love of giant robots was, I thought, irreparably damaged by a certain franchise, a certain director/producer, whose last name is synonymous with the geographic.
Sure.
Oh my God, it's Michael Bay. What's wrong with you? Just say Michael Bay.
No, I will not speak his name. If you say it like 4 times, he's inspired to create another film.
If you say it 5 times, a hot woman walks through your living room and shakes her booty at you, then promptly disappears.
That is absolutely not true.
It's absolutely true. Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay, Michael Bay. Look, there she is, and there she went. You can't disprove a hot woman didn't walk through my living room just now.
I'm pretty sure your wife is home. I could ask her.
I wouldn't if I were you. Let's get on with it.
I'm just saying. Don't make claims like that. There are ways to actively disprove what you just threw out there. All right.
Yeah, to be honest, I blame the writers more for that franchise than the director.
That's fair. Like, Michael Bay with a half-decent script is capable of delivering mindless entertainment.
Like when Michael Bay is doing a Michael Bay movie, he's good. Like, he has his own little box. He's great in that box. Once you take him out of that box, disaster happens.
Yeah. No, it's very fair. There's a couple of his movies I genuinely enjoy.
Armageddon.
To say. Armageddon and The Rock specifically.
Yeah, those are both good ones. Even Pain and Gain was somewhat of a legitimate contribution to cinema as an art form.
I liked Pain and Gain. I mean, I thought it was fine. I think it gets a little silly towards the end.
You want to know how much Look, the combination of Bay and Wahlberg was enough to make that the only movie starring The Rock that I haven't seen. That's how much I hate those two.
You are very much a
even
racist.
The Rock.
You are very much a racist against Mark Wahlberg, unnecessarily
Mark
so.
Wahlberg is not a race.
Sure he is.
But you got to admit, it would be interesting if he was.
No, it really wouldn't.
We've been invaded by a race of Wahlbergs. Run, everyone, run.
None of that. Why would you even remotely say that? Now M. Night Shyamalan's going to make a movie.
Can we get more Mark Wahlberg in more movies, please?
No. God, why?
How
many million people live in Boston? Pick one of them.
In 2021, I want at least one movie a week starring Mark Wahlberg for us to review.
Yeah, I will absolutely not do that.
All right, move this along, sir.
All right. Moving into the actual movie review, I believe we hit our time quota there, so yay us. Pacific Rim Uprising. This is normally where I would ask Mark about his expectations, why he added this to the... Not why he added this, I know why. Again, we're dealing with a sequel to a moderately successful blockbuster-style movie about robots punching monsters. Like, this is right up your alley, Mark, right?
Yeah, they wrote this movie for me.
This is it.
Yeah,
this
Hollywood.
is your Hamlet.
I was going to say, Pacific Rim is a love letter to Mark Radulich from Hollywood.
I'd like one of those, but no one would make it because it wouldn't. I'll be fair, it wouldn't make money. I mean, but
I'm sure somewhere out there is two gay cowboys eating pudding that you can watch. I'm sure someone has made that movie.
I genuinely didn't actually care for Brokeback Mountain. Like, there's good parts about it, but I didn't. Nah, not really my thing.
Did they eat pudding?
I was surprised. What?
Did they eat pudding?
I don't know. I assume so. I don't remember. I saw the movie twice. Like, when it came out, like, around the time of award season, because I wanted to be somewhat educated on the films that year.
Congratulations. This is the first time I've heard anyone talk about Brokeback Mountain in like 10 years.
You're welcome.
Kind of says it all, doesn't it?
It completely derailed Jake Gyllenhaal for a period of at least 18 months.
You know what I love about this bit? I reference South Park. You no-sell it and continue to do a half review of Brokeback Mountain. This is why people listen to the show.
It's better because I actually did understand your reference this time.
Okay, well, God knows I've said it. Okay, I was going to say, God knows I've said it enough times.
All right. So, again, we will not be doing a big thing about why this is on the schedule or why Mark hates me. We all know why Mark hates me. He's racist.
Racist against Winfrey's.
Yes. Because now apparently your last name makes you a race.
Moving on. Let's keep it going, baby.
So instead, we will be jumping into the plot synopsis for Pacific Rim Uprising, because we always do this. This is your spoiler warning. If you have not seen the film, I'm about to recount what happened so that everything we say when we actually talk about it has context.
Oh, real quick. Remember everything I told you about we have to clean up the show because I'm going to post this on the Movie Pass board? Yeah, ignore that.
I do recall that.
I'm not doing it, so don't worry about it. I mean,
you didn't have the self-control to clean up your language enough?
No, my wife said stop being a sellout, asshole, and do the show that you want to do. The show that David Wright fell in love with. Right, David?
Oh, dear God.
All right. I hate the don't be a sellout philosophy. It's so morally bankrupt.
Would you like my wife to come in and explain herself, or should we move this on?
Your wife and I think alike on various points. I can imagine her perspective on this, and just, I don't find it all that valid personally, but it's your show, it is your network, and if this is the way you want to do it, you have my support.
I'm still waiting for Pride to be accepted by my landlord as rent.
That would be nice.
It would be.
All right. Pacific Rim Uprising is set 10 years after the finale of the original film. We follow John Boyega, because he's a thing now. He plays the son of Idris Elba from the first movie, and we meet him as he is living it up in a trashed part of the world, because they're still recovering, and certain parts of the world are still recovering from the constant barrage of giant extra-dimensional monsters. And he's living off the scraps of that at the moment. He's squatting, he's hustling, he's stealing and selling, and he's really doing his old dad Stringer Bell proud. He's really, really living that up. He gets arrested after he tries to steal from a small child who has built a one-person, about a, 1/5 scale Jaeger? It's a small Jaeger.
That sounds about right, yeah.
It's a small Jaeger that one person can pilot. It's small enough that a single pilot can handle the neural load necessary to maneuver it. They're both arrested, but because he is the son of, again, Marshall Pentecost, and his adopted sister, Mako, also from the first movie, is still alive, and she is now, what is her position exactly? The Pan-Pacific Defense Corps General Secretary.
I was going to go with nagging sister.
No, she actually has a position of authority beyond the familial relationship.
She wasn't that nagging.
I know.
Yeah. She seemed a little naggy to me. A little naggy.
Well, you have to see that everywhere because you don't see it in your wife.
What the hell?
I'm not going near that one.
1 week on vacation and suddenly you grow a set. Continue with your with your synopsis, sir.
To avoid going to prison, because he's too pretty to go to prison, I think that's actually part of his logic. Like he spends an inordinate amount of time obsessed with male attractiveness. Not just his own. Like he talks about.
He does say that a number of times that he's a good-looking fella. But I'll tell you, his logic in the sense, as far as trying to avoid jail, that's just common. If you work with enough people who have,
I'm not actually. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, so if you work with enough people who are incarcerated, his whole thing about what do I got to do? What's the easy way? Whatever I got to do, and him trying to bargain his way out of being punished. That's about right.
No, yeah, that's completely fair. Again, but he just talks about himself as this deeply attractive person, and he actually says that about his co-pilot Scott Eastwood quite a few times too, at least once. I'm like, your obsession with male attractiveness is a little weird. But anyway, to get out of prison, he re-enlists in the Ranger Corps, and his little buddy, whose name I can't remember, Namari?
Short fry?
Go with Namari.
Short round?
Starbuck? I don't know.
Jaeger girl.
Jaeger bomb.
I'm going with Namari. Who came up with it? It's Amara Namari. Namani, excuse me. Who thought that wasn't a... Never mind.
All right, so
there was a website that listed all the names of the actors with their characters. That would be really handy right now.
Okay,
I found it. I did find it. Anyway,
John Boyega's Jake Pentecost and his partner Johnny Mnemonic, go.
Didn't want to go with Johnny Dangerously, huh? All right. She is accepted into the cadet program because she demonstrated some aptitude piloting her, smaller Jaeger. There's friction because she is blindly accepted in, and some of the other cadets are I hate to say understandably bitter about this, but I say understandably in the sense that this is a rational human reaction to the circumstance. And there's friction between Boyega and Scott Eastwood. Because apparently Boyega Pentecost kind of bailed on his co-pilot and some elements of the program and being in the Corps, and he's still a little burned by that. So there's again friction, but they kind of work through it throughout the course of the movie.
If you have seen a movie, you have seen this movie.
that aspect of it, yes. The early centralized point of conflict surrounds Charlie Day, who I hate. He works for...
Let me stop you right there. You've now used up your 3 editorial comments. You're done. All
right.
Stick with the plot.
All right. Again, Charlie Day, who, again, I hate. And he works for... I was reiterating, not adding. Who works for the Shao Corporation, which is trying to develop a drone-based Jaeger system so that you can have a single person pilot them, so that they can be deployed faster, so that the pilots don't have to be in the physical thing and thus risk their lives. We can do this safely from a centralized location. Drones are the future, ladies and gentlemen. That's the pitch. There's some resistance to this because no one's if you're not part of that corporation, apparently they weren't completely sold on the tech. They were worried about things being hacked. And the deciding vote for whether or not this goes into full-scale production and adoption by the military organization, whose initialization I will not be referring to every time. And so again, there's a little bit of friction, like, okay, are we out of a job? What's going to happen going forward? There's some training, not montage, but there's segments of training. Then at the big meeting, when the vote about this particular incident, about this proposal is supposed to happen, the meeting is attacked by a Jaeger. Boyega and Scott Eastwood, their names, Pentecost and Lambert. All right, I'm going to try to do that. They try to fight it off. They largely do, but during the course of the battle, Mako is killed. And this Jaeger escapes back into the depths of the ocean around Sydney. Due to this, the Security Council winds up approving the production and distribution of drones because had they had that technology, they would have been able to respond faster to the emergency situations that emerged. Pentecost and Lambert are kind of... they wind up trying to find out more about what happened with this rogue Jaeger because there's never been one that's actually that big and that effective. Mako wound up sending a bit of a message about the power source that it used having a familiar signature. They're able to track that to a decommissioned military base in Siberia where they go to investigate. They encounter said Jaeger again. They defeat it this time and find out that rather than that it's not piloted by an individual or 2 individuals or even, the old drone hardware that's supposed to be in there. It's instead piloted by a somewhat modified kaiju brain. It's not a good thing. So they begin investigating this. There's a mild subplot between the 2 brainiacs, Newt and Gottlieb. Geisler and Gottlieb, yeah, Newt's just his nickname. Again, they were the geniuses from the first movie. Newt now works for Shao and is getting high by continually drifting with a bit of kaiju brain that's still hanging around. As they start deploying all of the drones, there is a subroutine activated that was embedded within it that activates some kaiju biological material that had been melded with the technology because Akira. Old reference there, yay me.
I got it.
We are old. Yay us. They turn into a kaiju Jaeger hybrids. They wreak all kinds of havoc. They attack a bunch of the outposts for the various Jaeger installations, and a bunch of them just kind of fly to places around the Pacific Rim to open up localized breaches and let through kaijus to resume their assault on the Earth. This is eventually shut down, but a lot of pilots are killed, a lot of Jaegers are damaged, and 3 Kaiju do actually make it through. And they start trying to converge on Mount Fuji. Because giant things trashing Tokyo. I mean, really, like that's all I got there. Because of the shortage
you're not going to give any credence to the scientific explanation of what was in the volcano?
I will deal with that in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. For the sake of the plot, Kaiju blood reacts in a very volatile fashion with various rare earth elements that are listed, that I won't go into. And they kind of deduce that the plot of the Kaijus and the extra-dimensional aliens sending them through is not to have the Kaijus actually run rampant over the planet and kill us off that way. It's actually to get some of them to a active volcano that is connected to the Pacific Rim, because with a large enough deposit of Kaiju blood into this mixture of both heat and rare earth elements, it will create a large enough explosion to trigger the totality of the rim and all the volcanoes associated with it to erupt. This cataclysmic eruption would blot out the sun, poisonous gas, humanity dies within the next 20 years.
Dogs sleeping with cats, mass hysteria.
Very good.
And the planet is then ripe for colonization by what do they call them, the precursors? I believe so.
Yeah.
And so again, with a shortage of pilots, we promote all the cadets because it's what you do. I only mean that half sarcastically. Like, no, if you're in this position, yeah, anyone who's got any sort of experience, yeah, you take everything you can get. The 3 remaining Jaegers charge. We get 4 of them. We get a battle with the 3 individual Kaijus. We lose one of the pilots and one of the Jaegers, and at this point, Charlie Day reemerges and activates some. Jeez, what were they? Some automated, like another bunch of like smaller.
Calls them Rippers.
Yeah, and these little, I hate to call them nanobots because again they're macrobots, but relative to the Kaiju nanobots. These little things then converge on the 3 Kaijus, tear them partially apart, and then reassemble them into a single giant monstrosity, which is actually really cool.
Kaiju Voltron.
Something like that. The Jaegers are then badly battered and beaten by this because it is now Mega Kaiju. But, of course, the heroes have to win, so we get our final heroic moment when let me see, it's Pentecost, and actually it winds up being Namani, who takes over after Lambert gets injured. They pilot Gypsy Danger up into the upper atmosphere and then drop it on the thing. Which, again, solid plan, all things considered. They barely escape. Charlie Day is apprehended, and everyone celebrates, and the movie ends with the vaguely ominous notion that humanity is going to go on the offensive, because that ending worked out so well for Independence Day Resurgence. All right, did I miss anything? Did I give anything unfair shrift as far as the plot goes, and where do you want to start unpacking this, Mark?
Well, let's go ahead and defer to our friend David here. David, why don't you go ahead and give us your 50 words or less on what you liked about the movie, or if you have any other insights or burning desires that you want to bring up, now would be the time.
I'd say it was big, stupid, silly, dumb, and ridiculous, and I loved it.
Okay. I'm going to echo a lot of those same sentiments, actually. I went into Pacific Rim Uprising wanting to see a fairly coherent movie where giant robots punch monsters. What I got for most of it was giant robots punching another giant robot, but that's okay. I'm okay with that as well.
That works too.
With a little bit that I did see, I think Pacific Rim's major accomplishment, and this is where, I don't remember if we've only said this off air or not, but I know, Rob, off air we definitely said that Pacific Rim is a better Transformers movie than the last couple of Transformers movie, in the sense that, one, you don't have an overly complicated plot weighing down the action, but also the action itself is coherent. I mean, no one's going in to see...
You also have a running time that's tolerable rather than 20 minutes of Mark Wahlberg staring into the sunset and Stanley Tucci not knowing how to get rid of a bomb.
That's funny. I don't care who you are. In any case...
I hated it.
But
Absolutely
Robert's point is well taken, that this is... If I was going to rename this movie, I would call it The Success of Editing. Oneself, the film itself, the film, everything about it. I mean, this is just the right amount of everything to get you from soup to nuts and have yourself an enjoyable time. Paramount, take notice. Whoever directed this, get him to direct your next Transformers movie, because he seems to know what he's doing. That being said, I don't have a lot of critical complaints about the movie, because like I said, it's a small cast. Everyone kind of serves a purpose. The bully girl, Russian, the nice kid. It's like, and then a couple of add-ons to make funny lines and be cannon fodder. You have John Boyega, who's your star, who has his arc. It's about as basic an arc as one could have, but it's still an arc. An arc's an arc.
It's a better arc than Mark Wahlberg in any of his Transformers appearances, and certainly better than all of Shia LaBeouf in all of the other Transformers movies.
You have a guy who, is living in his father's shadow and is trying to make his own way, and finally finds that way through becoming a hero. Blah blah, yakety schmackety. His partner Johnny Mnemonic has an arc. Herself, she finds her purpose and everything else. I enjoyed how things were set up at the beginning and then paid off at the end, like the little scrapper bot. Makes itself useful, and I thought actually the scenes with the scrapper bot were actually pretty fun to watch. They didn't seem clunky at all. This is a movie heavily dependent on CGI. It, more so than John Boyega, is the star of the movie, and if it doesn't work, the movie doesn't work, and it works just fine. I don't think I was ever taken out of the movie because of the CGI. I like the fact that they humanized the villain. Instead of it being kind of an Independence Day, mindless, hive, bug alien villain type, they took that, because I think that's what that alien race is, but they personalized it and making Charlie Day essentially being possessed by these things. And so, whether or not you like Charlie Day, that's a personal thing. We heard you. That's a personal thing. I like the fact that at least the villain had a face and a personality, and it was fun and while not the strongest villain we've ever seen in the history of cinema, a fun mustache twirly, I'm going to take over the world type Skeletor villain. We don't get to see a lot of that where it works. I thought it worked well. I thought it worked well here because, again, you're not writing Shakespeare. This isn't The Lobster. This is supposed to get people in the theater to get up and cheer and have a good time and throw popcorn in the air. And to see Charlie Day get punched out at the end, I'm pretty sure had that effect on people. That
it felt like an older movie to me.
Yeah.
I kind of say this about Fury Road, where it's like, if this movie had come out 10, 20 years before it came out, it would have been just a fine movie for its time. But just because the art of filmmaking at that level has just gone downhill so much, you're like, oh, wow, this film has story and characters. This is amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
An action film with characters. Wow.
Yeah, this is the special needs character kicking the ball, or the bit in Family Guy where Stewie's at the all Jewish school and he's the only one that actually kicks the soccer ball and gets a trophy. That's kind of where we are film wise.
Yeah, it's not that we've got 50 different conspiracy theory plots going on and we have no idea what the heck we're doing, so we're just going to keep piling more and more on and hope nobody notices that we actually haven't done anything in the film.
Right. I mean, that's what I mean by this is the triumph of editing. Because at no point was I watching this going, so the FBI knew the CIA was setting up the DEA. There was none of that. It was just as straightforward as could be.
No NSA?
The villain was working on a long-term plan to have drones piloted by kaijus And the goal here was to reset the Earth, ready for takeover by the aliens. Perfect. I didn't need any more than that.
Yeah, it built off of the last movie well enough.
Right.
And until John Boyega went in and did the whole, next time we're coming for you, it didn't feel like a modern movie. Like, there was no cinematic universe or series being set up. It was just like, hey, that last one was fun. Let's make another one. Right.
And obviously they are setting it up for more movies. That's, the whole we're going after the aliens. But, that's assuming this one makes money, and so far it has, but we'll get to that shortly.
It probably will.
Yeah, it seems...
I'm okay with that.
Hey, it's already knocked off Black Panther out of the top spot, so it's got that going for it. Certainly better than Tomb Raider.
To be fair, it's also 6 weeks into Black Panther's cinematic run, and the fact that it took this long in this movie to actually accomplish that is a massive indictment on everything else that came out between the two.
I just don't understand why A Wrinkle in Time didn't work better. Anywho.
Shut up. You and I both know exactly why.
I'm being sarcastic. Aren't I funny? So that's it. I mean, I don't want to belabor the point. I'll kick it back to you guys. I really don't have any complaints other than the characters maybe were a little stockish, a little underwritten, maybe a lot underwritten, depending on... I started to say a lot underwritten because I knew you were going to say that. But I don't think in a movie like this you need a lot of strong characters. That's not what people... I think... Because here's the thing. I started to think about this before we went off on this other tangent. But if you look at some of the sci-fi fantasy movies that have come out over the last couple of months, maybe the last couple of years, there have been movies like The Last Jedi which subvert expectation and try to reinvent the wheel and really give you something different. And it runs afoul of at least half of a fan base that says, no. I went into a donut store to buy a donut. I did not go into a donut store to buy sushi. And that's what you gave me. I'm not saying the sushi's bad. I'm saying I didn't come for this. And I just get the feeling that with Pacific Rim Uprising, it was just make a solid, functional, competent movie that makes the nerds happy. Don't try to do anything fancy. This isn't art. That's not what we're doing. And I think 100% succeeded in that. Now... To be fair, that means some of the craft elements aren't up to the par of superior movie making. But again, it's a donut. It's a donut. Hey, it's a donut. Hey, he's American. He's a donut.
But it's a good donut. That's the trick.
It's an awfully tasty donut. All right, Robert.
Like an artisanal donut, not like a cheap, mass-produced donut.
Your thoughts on donuts, sir? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Robert. Now tell us why David and I are completely wrong.
Well, you're wrong about so much, but not as it pertains to this.
Okay, fuck yourself, sir.
You decided to have 2 kids. Really?
Yes, and I love them both. I love them both equally.
2 is the wrong number. It's 1 or 3. 2
no.
is just it's unholy.
That's wrong, sir. That is mathematically wrong. You want 2 because then the ratios are 1-to-1.
No. You really don't want 2.
I'm not.
It's
wrong
not about the
this.
ratio or about defending the metaphorical fortress that you and your wife now have to hold over these monsters as they slowly eat you out of house and home from the inside.
But if they're trying to kill each other, that means you can slip away and get some sleep.
I don't like where this conversation's headed. Review the movie, sir.
That is true. I only had a couple of quasi-major complaints about this. One is, is
it a Mr. Wizard complaint?
No.
Okay. A lot of your complaints are Mr. Wizardy. I just wanted to be sure what we were getting into.
There's so much fictional science that goes into these movies that there's only so much, reality of physics as we understand it that can really pertain to these. There's a bit of, okay, you clearly don't understand how, hacking and computers work, but it's not egregious. Dropping something from as high as they got it, I have a minor gripe about them saying that the only rocket fuel they have capable of lifting these things is this new hybrid of kaiju blood and, again, rare earth elements. And if they're rare Earth elements, really, are we good? Is this a sustainable plan? Like, if these are rare, just how many times are we going to be able to launch these things with them? I mean, are the Jaegers actually physically dense enough that it is more difficult to lift them with, liquid O2, which is generally what we use to launch space shuttles?
Am I the only one having the urge to beat on him right now and stuff him in a locker?
I wouldn't say it's that bad, but the answer to your question is giant robot.
Again, I am prepared to accept that these things just have enough mass to them that this is not a feasible. That the materials we have and the fuels we have are not all that feasible. It's also really easy to write a singular line of dialogue delivered by the nerd genius that says traditional rocket fuel isn't powerful enough to make this feasible. We have to use this stuff. That's really all you need.
And then you get your exposition for why the monster is going to Mount Fuji at the end of the movie.
No, that's... He can still use... Again, his point is that we need these to do this. I would just like a singular line of dialogue where he elaborates as to why we need this, not what we already have. Because that's really all you need. Like, everyone is going to accept what this guy says at face value, be that in the universe or in the theater.
He's the scientist.
Yeah, and again, so they will accept what he says. So if he says we need, liquid O2 isn't efficient enough to move something as dense as the Jaegers, I'm okay with that. I really am, but it's left unaddressed.
I think he said that rockets aren't powerful enough to do that, so it was kind of already in there.
Let me add this to this commentary, this particular conversation.
Since you brought up my need for science, Mark, I wasn't actually going to complain about that, but thank you.
Okay, now that you've said that, let me propose this as a counter-argument. Boring! Anything else you don't like?
Yes, we know. You would rather they didn't talk at all. You would rather the exposition be delivered via screen-crawling text at the beginning of the movie, and then there's a lot of...
Stop wasting...
Womp, womp,
Stop wasting time. Get to the punching.
My biggest gripe as I think about this movie, again, one of them is overall structural, just the very stock nature of the characters.
By the way, I got that Simpsons reference.
I know. I know you did. I appreciate it.
Okay, just checking.
My gripe about the characters being very stock is a general complaint. It is not a... I'm not leveling it at any one character, and given the totality of this film, they kind of know how they kind of work with it. It is still a general flaw of craft. Well,
it's a shortcut for you to understand what the characters are.
Yeah.
And in this kind of movie, that's fine. Like, the characters are serviceable. They don't need to be super deep. I mean, it's nice to get deep characters, but you don't always need that. We're here to watch robots punch monsters. With a little smattering of, okay, people are doing stuff too.
I tend to prefer the ratio that the first film hit in terms of character development versus giant robots. Here they kind of invert it. There is more giant robot than there is character. Both are acceptable. That largely comes down to personal preference. My biggest gripe with the narrative arc is actually the Siberian island that they go to. There's not really a coherent point of connectivity between that location and what follows it.
Well, Well, no. I thought that was a bit of plot revealing, where what the major thing they're dealing with is the fact that these aren't drones intended to be piloted by humans. These are drones being controlled by kaiju. We've been had. There's an there's an enemy within.
That is absolutely necessary.
Yeah, it's more like someone was able to build a state-of-the-art full-size Jaeger in secret. Not many people can do that. So when Mako was in the helicopter, she's like, "Oh, hey, that guy. There's something strange about this guy." So maybe there was a deleted scene that explained this better, but it's I think she was able to recognize.
She
qualities about
the
that.
energy signature or the power or something like that.
Like something with this energy signature would have been built at this plant, So this is where you guys should start your investigation, and that's what they did.
It didn't feel fully realized to me from a narrative perspective.
So I see what you guys are saying. What you're saying is there's a scene that's missing that goes into how they were able to build such a thing in secret and nobody notices. That's really what you're drawing a circle around and saying this key part of the movie is missing and detracts from the movie. And I'm not trying to be snarky about it. I'm asking, is that what you're saying?
You can connect, but
go ahead, David.
A lot of
recognizes something about this thing. She's transmitting them a message. Yeah, like as long as they give you the pieces, you can put the puzzle together. It's not a difficult puzzle to put together.
No, there's not a whole lot of, again, complexity here. There's just a little, like, and again, you need the rematch between the two giant robots. I get that. You need them to win so that we can find out that, there's kaiju physiology integrated with this Jaeger. This is a bad thing.
Something's going on.
Yeah, I get that you need that. I question the plot device of go to this island and how that connects to what follows after. Maybe it's a weird thing, and maybe there's something that I am not necessarily fully understanding about it.
Here's what I'll tell you. This was from a director's point of view. If you think about, again, I'll bring up like Star Wars, but I mean, really any sci-fi fantasy movie. Think about here's an even better one. How about the Avengers? All right, you don't want to see the Avengers fighting in the same locations throughout an entire 2-hour movie. They have to keep changing locations and different things in order to keep the movie visually interesting. I think when your finale is the wanton destruction of an entire city by giant robots and monster robots, you need a scene where they're still fighting, but you're not wrecking an entire city. Because this, again, is the problem with Transformers. It becomes... It honestly becomes destruction porn. It's scene after scene after scene of the same thing. How many times have we complained in the Transformers movies about you can't tell from one scene to the next where they're fighting and what they're fighting about? Now, that's partially because the movies are incompetently done, but it's also because the scenes are all kind of set the same way. Whereas this one, they give you this scene that's a rich and interesting environment, in Antarctica, and then later on, you build up to this other finale where they wreck an entire city, and at least there's differentiation. That would be my explanation for why they did it that way. It also looked pretty.
Yeah, you can focus on the two robots fighting it out and see what's going on without having like a whole city in the way. Also, if you're going to secretly build a Jaeger, you're probably going to do it at a place that there aren't many people at.
And
like if he was rebuilding it at the New York factory, people would kind of know, like, hey, what's this evil black-looking Jaeger doing here? Something's up.
No, I understand why you would build something like this in that location. I understand why you would, from a construction standpoint, in terms of the film, want something that looks different. I get all that. This is purely narrative. There's an issue of writing that fails to connect the two points around the two parts of the movie around this particular point, and it feels a bit disjointed to me narratively, simply because, in large part, because of that. Not exclusively because of that, but in large part.
I'm really struggling to I'm trying to stretch and understand where you're coming from. It sounds to me like you're saying, like, why Antarctica? Why specifically? Like, they didn't give a good enough reason why it had to be that place and not, say, the Mojave Desert. Is that where this is?
No. Like, I don't care about the visuals. I don't care that it's in Siberia. That really doesn't matter.
No, I got that. What I was saying, or what I'm trying to extrapolate from what you're saying, is narratively they didn't explain why it had to be there and not someplace else.
Narrative, they didn't explain narratively why any of that mattered.
Like why they couldn't have just had him defeat the Jaeger in Sydney and, oh, hey, it's got Kaiju brain in it.
Something like that, yeah. Like,
okay, that helps me get closer. I guess they probably just wanted another action scene.
Yeah, they wanted a rematch.
Which I am okay with that if that's your decision. then you have to write the sequence leading up to said rematch and actually connect it to the remainder of the movie in a way that flows better than this did.
All right. How does the scene in Sydney end? Did the robot just say...
It walks into the water.
It just
literally just walks into the ocean.
The other Jaegers arrive, and then he kind of looks like, okay, 4 against 1, not a fair fight. I'm out of here.
Okay. And then I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the details of the movie. And then they figure out where it is later, and they say, "Let's go get it." Is that's about
No,
what
no.
happens?
Let's go see what's there.
They're able to decipher elements of Mako's message, which pointed them to this particular factory. So they go to investigate and happen to run across it.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay,
then-
now I get
and
your
from there
point.
from there we just move to Kaiju's integrated with Jaegers.
Okay, now I see what you're saying. It took me a minute to realize.
My one issue with that scene was when they looked at the factory, like, yeah, it's been abandoned. If they had say like, oh, wait a minute, this thing's been active, and then the Obsidian, whatever it's called, Jaeger shows up.
Yeah, like,
to cover their tracks.
It can literally be that simple. We don't need 20 minutes tacked on. A small, like 40 second scene with 3 lines of dialogue could easily flesh out and smooth out all of my complaints about this. That's part of what bugs me about it so much. Like, you're building a relatively streamlined film, you're building a simple film, but you're doing it to the best of your ability, which is commendable. There's a couple of really simple fixes for a few of these problems that would not have appreciably detracted from your overall...
Well, I would counter that with, is it really a problem? As David said, if you buy the logic that the kaiju figured it was going to get killed, so it took off, and they were then investigating the little, the clues that were left by Mako, and they happened to run across this, factory where this Jaeger is. Why is that not enough? Like, it could be stronger.
Hang on.
Sure, it could be stronger. But if there's just even that thin line, why is that thin line to get you from one place to the next not sufficient? I'm not saying. I mean, if your argument is be a better film, fine. But I don't see where the lack of the meat of what you're talking about necessarily detracts enough for me to say it's not a good film.
I'm not saying it's not I'm not saying this is like the singular tipping point for me to where I hated the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But you asked me what my complaints were.
Sir.
Mm-hmm.
And your complaint is that they could have been beefed up in areas.
This area specifically, because it almost feels like there's two different... I hate to say movies because that's really not accurate, but there's a very specific narrative flow prior to that scene, and then there's a very specific narrative that comes after that scene, and this is the point that should facilitate that transition, and instead it feels like a stop and then restart rather than a natural flow.
I will go with you with the one thing I thought was a little bizarre and I had some difficulties with. There's an allusion to the idea that the Kaiju Jaeger hybrid showing up in Sydney was a false flag to get the Defense Corps to adopt the drone program, and it's never picked up on. It's mildly alluded to and then summarily dropped, and then it didn't matter because there was another villain at play here doing a thing.
Well, it was it was supposed to set up the Chinese businesswoman. What's her name?
Really,
Anyway.
all we needed from that was a bit of Charlie Day mustache twirly where he says, "This is why I sent that Jaeger to do that, because she was the deciding vote and I needed these things distributed." I mean, you have him at
But that's the thing, it made it look like his boss was the one that set that whole thing up. And then there's no payoff.
I actually appreciate the misdirect.
Yeah, you don't expect Newt because he's the funny guy from the last movie, whereas you get the CEO and she's being this cold, hard, money above everything, this has to succeed, don't get in my way character.
I'm okay with that. What I'm saying is what I felt like there was no payoff to was the allusion to that it was a false flag situation. They don't ever deal with it.
I agree. what you needed was during one of, again, because there's two different points when you have Charlie Day dump exposition on the audience. During one of those two exposition dumps, he just needs to mention that he's the one who sent the Jaeger to kill Mako.
Mm-hmm. Because
he needed the drones online to facilitate the Kaiju reemergence. You just, again, that's all you needed, was him expressing that it was him. It was me. It was me, James, the author of all your pain.
That was me, Herman, the author of all your pain. He's like, yes, I know you're an annoying ass.
Yes, you've been the bane of television since the start of you and everyone else associated with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think just to me and maybe to Mark as well, we kind of were able to put the pieces together without being told directly that it made sense that he knew he probably made the thing, and that was his reason.
I knew.
Like the moment I saw Mako in the helicopter going past, and it's like, I'm the only vote that can decide whether or not to do drones, and I don't want to do drones. She's gonna go. She's gonna get killed.
A giant flashing neon sign saying, "I'm about to die."
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed, but she was wearing an albatross underneath her coat.
Yeah, it's like, and what how convenient. This also gives John Boyega motivation to actually care about the Jaeger program now.
Right.
Avenge his sister's death. Anyway.
Winfrey, anything else? Anything else, sir?
Again, I actually did like the misdirect, the kind of setup of the cold, heartless capitalist, because that's how most of these movies are written. And then, no, it's actually Charlie Day, because he's awful. I appreciate a good slight misdirect like that, especially in a formulaic movie. So I kind of dug that. I dug most of the action sequences. There's nothing special to this movie, but it's... what's the best way I can describe this?
Well, giant robots is what's special about this movie.
No. 20 years ago, giant robots were special. Then Michael Bay ruined them.
No, but these are like real giant robots.
The best way I heard this about the Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron remake of The Italian Job. And I think it's probably accurate here in terms of how I feel about the movie in total. It's a very paint-by-numbers movie, but at least it used the right colors.
Yeah, that's valid. I mean, this is what I want in my popcorn entertainment. At no point in this movie did I feel like my intelligence was insulted. Yeah, there's nothing deep or meaningful in it, but, it's just like...
I just say that? It was really nice to go to a large-budget blockbuster movie and not feel like everyone involved is insulting the audience constantly.
Wait till we get to the Rotten Tomato reviews. All right. With that said, are we ready to move this party along?
Sure.
All right. Here come the money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
All righty. Put your mittens around your kittens and away we go. Pacific Rim Uprising on a budget of $150 million as brought to you by the second best movie studio in the world, Universal, because nobody beats the mouse. Worldwide, we're sitting pretty at $152 million. And Pacific Rim finally ended the 5-week winning streak of Black Panther at the number one spot of the weekend box office. Not that it's going to be a long victory. We've got Rampage and then The Avengers. So, yeah. And somewhere in there, Ready Player One. So anyway, let's go.
Is Ready Player One next week?
Yeah,
yes.
I think it's this weekend.
Yes, it's
March
this weekend
29th.
coming up. All right, so it's most likely Ready Player One's most likely going to be number one next weekend, but let's stick with this past weekend. Pacific Rim, as I said, number one. Black Panther went to number 2. I Can Only Imagine stayed its second week at number 3. Sherlock Gnomes, Robert Winfrey's favorite animated feature of this year, debuted at number 4. Tomb Raider, which was just announced on the blogs, is probably a dead franchise at this point. They're not doing another one with Alicia Vikander, from what I can tell. That fell from 2 to 5. Robert Winfrey's favorite Disney film, A Wrinkle in Time, fell from 4 to 6.
Further get bent.
Love, Simon fell from 5 to 7. Paul, Apostle of Christ, debuted at number 8. Game Night fell from 6 to 9. Midnight Sun debuted at 10. The horror movie Unsane in the Membrane debuted at number 11. Peter Rabbit has fallen out of the top 10 finally. It fell from 7 to 12. Red Sparrow 9 to 13. Strangers, They Pray at Night fell from 8 to 14. The Wes Anderson animated-ish flick Isle of Dogs debuted at number 15. Death Wish, your gun-toting uncle's favorite movie of this year, fell from 10 to 16. The Death of Stalin rose from 19 to 17. Annihilation, a great science fiction flick starring lots of women that nobody saw, fell from 11 to 18.
Well, sure, because we couldn't rally around it politically.
Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, is still making money, honey. 12 to 19. And The Greatest Showman, because Oscars, 14 to 20. And something called Hitchki debuted at number 22. But most importantly, 50 Shades Freed is still in the top 10, folks. I believe it's actually number 5. I'll tell you in a moment. And just because I enjoy saying it, Having Sex with Water has fallen from 16 to 25. You know what? That gets a little bit of this. Come here, horsey. I make myself laugh. Anywho,
I'll say we can't hear what the sound effect was.
it's the sound of a horse neighing and dying while it's neighing. See, because I beat a dead horse. Get it?
Okay. I am with the joke now. Thank you.
You need to listen to more Metal Hammer of Doom. That gets a lot of play.
You really don't.
Hey. All right. Oh, crap. Box Office Mojo. We're in the process of updating our sites. Son of a bitch.
They have no consideration for our podcast.
No,
why
are they?
I tell you, some people.
Tuesday night. Why are they updating it now? All right. Well, domestically, let's see if that works. Yay! Domestically, Black Panther is still the number 1 movie in the world at 633
Do you
million
want
domestic.
worldwide returns?
I was trying to get that. Yeah, and
I will find those. Hang on.
While you do that, Peter Rabbit's still the number 2 movie in the United States. 50 Shades Freed is the number 3. A Wrinkle in Oprah is number 4. Insidious 5, Game Night 6, Maze Runner 7, 12 Strong 8, and Den of Thieves 9, Red Sparrow 10.
All right, here is your worldwide grosses so far. Black Panther number 1, 1.24 billion. Number 2, Operation Red Sea. This is a Chinese film. Number 3 is Detective Chinatown 2, also Chinese film. Number 4 is 50 Shades Freed, because we deserve every bad thing that happens to us. You people are terrible.
We're on that later.
Number 5, Monster Hunt 2, yes. I believe this is another Japanese film, or Japanese or Chinese. Double check. Yes, this is a Hong Kong adventure film. Number 6 is Maze Runner: The Death Cure, because young adult dystopian future franchises just don't die, even though they should. Number 7 is Tomb Raider. Number 8, Peter Rabbit. Number 9, Insidious: The Last Key. And number 10, Pacific Rim Uprising.
All right. It's currently sitting at 150. I figure Pacific Rim finally ends its run somewhere in the $500 million mark. It's got a lot of competition over the next couple of weeks. I mean, moving Avengers from the first week of May to the last week of April doesn't help anybody at all, ever. Other than the people who want to see the movie, which is me. I already got my ticket. But there's a lot of stiff competition over the next couple of weeks. As we said, this Friday is Ready Player One. There's nothing as far as competition April 6th, but if you're into seeing something that doesn't have a lot of pew, 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 boom, 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 there's Chappaquiddick. Then Rampage starring...
Oh, God.
Then Rampage...
Can I just say, I saw a trailer for that and just went, why?
Really? You're giving the movie about what's-his-face Kennedy killing a woman shit? After you do nothing but complain about all the schlock we watch... Finally, I mentioned a movie that's, historical drama, and you're like, no, fuck that movie.
It's historical drama. it's also either going to it. Maybe I should say that my gripe is with a lot of the promotion around it. It's the untold true story. Like, no, we all know what happened. There's no mystery here.
Okay.
So you're either deliberately lying to all of the potential audience members about, oh, it was nefarious. He killed her before he drove off the cliff, that bridge, or, and I tend to think you'll actually try to imply that with the totality of your film, which is about as responsible as that Zodiac killer movie that ended with Jake Gyllenhaal looking at the guy going, yeah, I know it's you, and then the next card that comes up before the credits is so-and-so was exonerated by DNA evidence. Like, piss off.
All right.
We finally solved the Zodiac. No, it was Ted Kennedy it was malicious. No, guy's a drunk.
So what I should have said...
untold because it's made up.
What I should have said that comes out April 6th that actually has some fairly...
Feel free to use that one.
Decent competition. I'm just going to keep going. Is Blockers starring John Cena, which is apparently getting rave reviews, for a raunchy comedy. Apparently people, the early word on Blockers starring WWE superstar John Cena.
For those of you unaware, there's a big picture of a rooster right before Blockers.
Because it's Cock Blockers. That's why. The whole name of the movie, that was Blockers. Anyway, so, yeah, Ready Player One, then Blockers, then Rampage. Now, the week of the 20th...
Now, Mark, on a scale of 1 to the average Radulich,
yes,
how excited are you for Rampage?
Oh, okay. 1 to 10? 10. Absolutely. This is, other than the Avengers, this is the movie I'm looking most forward to this year.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. If I had to guess, that's what it would have been.
All right, so the week of the 20th, there's not a whole lot of competition in as far as, action adventure, but you might shave off some of the audience to go see the funny. On the one hand, you've got, all right, try to compose yourself, Winfrey. Try to keep it in your pants, okay? You've got... I
make no promises.
You've got the... oh, gosh, what is her name? Oh, Amy Schumer vehicle, I Feel Pretty, where she gets hit on the head and becomes, confident. Then also Super Troopers 2. So you have all of that the week of the 20th. Again...
Why? Just why?
But none of that matters, because in the shadow of all these things is Avengers Infinity War, which comes out April 27th, which will be eating up everything in its path, pretty much until and probably including Deadpool and Solo come out at the end of May. So that is... Any you guys want to weigh in on where Pacific Rim will probably stand at the end of the year? Again, I'm saying it probably settles in around $500 million for the year. Total.
I don't think it's going to do amazing, but it seems to be solid. But more importantly, where were all you people when the first one came out?
The first one did.
I'm looking it up now.
Did get it number 3. Grown Ups 2 was number 1. More people wanted to watch Adam Sandler get pissed on by a deer. Now, if that was for pathetic reasons, I completely understand.
It didn't do too bad. I mean, it did. It had almost a $200 million budget, more than the second one did, obviously, and it made about $411 million. I mean, that's not terrible.
Yeah, but still, come on, guys.
Again, look, when that movie didn't do as well as one of the Transformers movies, that is your sign that we deserve every terrible thing that comes our way. Yeah. When society has reached a point where more people are going to go watch Grown Ups 2, I don't know what to say. We have lost the plot so completely that it's almost like a non-plot film, not like a lack of plot. God, what am I word? I can words well. It's more. We are living like Catch-22 narrative structure here, people. That's how badly we have lost the plot.
All right, so my last word on the money is this. Future. Pacific Rim Uprising is a springboard for a cinematic universe where DeKnight revealed, if enough people show up to this, we've already talked about the plot of the third movie and how the end of the third movie would expand the universe to a Star Wars, Star Trek style franchise or series where you can go in many different directions. You can go You can go main canon. You can go spin-offs. You can go one-offs. Yeah, that's the plan. And now here's what here's what I really wanted to share. DeKnight also talked about the possibility of a crossover with the MonsterVerse.
That's not going to happen.
Just let's get through Godzilla King of the Monsters, all right? Leave my Godzilla franchise alone.
No.
With your crappy desire for an extended universe. It's a bad idea.
I want Jaegers versus Godzilla. I want Jaegers.
I would actually go for Godzilla versus a Jaeger. That would be kind of cool.
Maybe
not canon.
Yeah,
but
they already
cool.
made it. It's called Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla. What's the matter with you people?
I want Godzilla versus that three-headed dragon thing. No, I want Jaegers versus the three-headed dragon thing. I want King Kong, Donkey Kong, and the Planet of the Apes versus Jaegers. Bring it all on. I can't wait for this.
This is why you don't get to work in the movie industry, Mark.
If the intern, I don't know if there's still the same intern that's been listening to our show for years, still listening to us, waiting for great ideas. But there you have it, folks. Donkey Kong, King Kong, and the Planet of the Apes versus Jaegers. Make that movie for me. Let's do it.
Don't. Intern, do not do this. It will cost you your life.
Like, guys, here's how you do this. I mean, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's like, you look at the movie, like, okay, lots of people like that. Let's make another one. And then, if that one does good, make another one. And if that one does good, make another one. You see the pattern here. You know, none of this, like, we've planned out the next 7 movies in the series, just try and make a good movie. And if people like it, try and make to another good movie.
Look, if you are not Marvel, you don't get to plan that far in advance. You just don't. It never works out.
However, I will say one thing. This is one of the few franchises where I would actually like to see a prequel.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Like, if they took, like, the first 5 minutes of the first movie and expanded that into a film where it goes from, like, the first kaiju attack to, okay, we've got this Jaeger program up and running, we might actually be able to win this thing, I would see that movie.
Can we get... Now, I'm trying to see which studio this was for this to happen, but can we get a Independence Day Pacific Rim crossover?
No.
Can we make that happen?
No.
I don't think that would work.
Can we make no? Let me pitch this, okay? What if the alien race actually? What if the aliens that were sending the kaijus to Earth were the aliens from Independence Day?
No.
Yes. They were sending their zoo animals. It'll be fantastic.
No. Get out.
I mean, for Jaegers to, like, take on alien spaceships, we would have to, like, go, like, some serious Go Nagai super robot stuff. Where, like, you just have, like, insane, crazy sci-fi energies that can only be harnessed by giant robots that you can, like, actually, like, fight in space with.
Damn it, Independence Day is from Fox. This isn't going to happen.
Look, if you want that, like, I can recommend Knights of Sidonia. That's about as far as I can go with it.
That is a good show.
But if it's Fox, and now it's owned by Disney, what if the Independence Day aliens and the aliens merged and became like a super army that attacked the Earth and the Avengers had to fight them? Huh? What if?
This only works if this ends with the Avengers being massacred by the Xenomorphs and we get a Hulk morph.
A Hulk Xenomorph?
As they all fall over the shark.
Okay.
Really, all I want is the Hulk to die.
No,
violently,
stop it.
Bloodily. I want the Hulk to die. I want Thanos to crush his skull into fine paste and then bathe in the tears that follow.
You're a communist and a homosexual.
I am neither of those things, and you know it. If you want to call me a terrible person, call me a terrible person. I am neither of those things.
Fair enough.
I didn't notice any pejoratives in that insult, so I'm not sure what we're getting at.
I did.
It's that's.
So you mean he likes people and he's got good fashion sense? Like what?
Hold on. No, I hate people.
Hey, I don't resemble that at all.
Okay,
hang on. I have to now. I have to now explain that.
I'm just going to point out that Stalin murdered like 300 million people.
Okay, before anyone's just like, you racist.
The Soviet Union actually had to put out pamphlets in Ukraine reminding parents not to eat their children because they were starving.
Terrific.
Yeah,
What I wanted to say was
insult.
it's a Bloom County joke. That whole I've been saying it for years that you're a communist and a homosexual. It's a joke I got from the cartoon strip Bloom County, decidedly liberal comic strip Bloom County. Ugh.
That's okay. My feelings aren't hurt, and if they were, I'd just go and get them fixed at the hospital for free.
That sounds like a great segue
sure.
to our next bit.
Unless you actually need major surgery, in which case, welcome to the wait list.
Yep. But we still get to the end.
Maybe.
All right, I'm
This
gonna
is
ask David because he seems the more
All right.
rational of you two right now.
Oh,
Hey,
dear.
David, I have a question
Yes.
for you.
Glossy politics
Okay.
aside.
Here's my question.
Yep.
Are you ready?
He's playing another sound.
I said, are you ready?
We might have lost Marky there.
Yes, stop talking over the sound.
No.
We can't hear the sound.
I've explained this to you. I like how
So you know I cannot hear the joke that you are making.
yes.
You are somehow expecting me to respond to this joke that I do not know what it is.
No, when
I think he's really just trying to set us up for the next segment.
I really was.
Oh, okay. Was that the Steve Carell? Oh no, oh god, no.
Yes.
Yes,
It's-
that's exactly
okay.
what that was.
Yes, the opening to the DX theme, and then we cut to Steve Carell hating life.
But I do enjoy that. What's happened since our move to Spreaker is that an ongoing bit is people talking over the sound they can't hear because Cooper does it constantly. It's fantastic. All right, I'm gonna go
work on it.
All right. bring it
I'd
on.
cry if I didn't laugh so hard about it. And, anyway, I'm going to read the two that I sent you first, Robert, and then let's start with 10 minutes of hate. Okay. So just so people know, I read through these the other day, and I started sending pictures of them to Robert Winfrey to prepare him for this because these are just terrible, just the absolute ass worst. All right. This comes from the Observer UK. And because of the way that I did this, I can't read who wrote it, and I'll find it later. But it makes you yearn for the nuance and complex characterizations of the Transformers series.
That would be Wendy Ida?
Something like that. Yeah. Anyway, get him, Winfrey.
Okay. Let's be very, very clear about this. I understand what you're trying to say, that we have stock characters here, and you wish they weren't stock characters, you wish they were more well-developed. That's fair. Where we run into the giant bit of you being catastrophically wrong is comparing this to the Transformers. I mean, which Transformers character do you think is even relative to these more nuanced? Is it the little girl who really just wants to fight by the side of Mark Wahlberg and has a big quasi-heroic speech in the first 5 minutes of the most recent one? Is it Stanley Tucci's somewhat villainous Steve Jobs impression? Is it Mark Wahlberg being the sad sack and just trying to protect his daughter? Maybe it's his daughter's loosely Australian boyfriend whose character, the sum total of his character is he likes off-road racing. I mean, maybe these are the complex characters that you yearn for relative to the stock characters we get here. This is so categorically wrong.
But you have seen both movies, right?
Yes.
And he's going to see Bumblebee later this year.
Oh, shut up. Don't remind me.
I wasn't talking to you, Robert. I was talking to the critic. Like she has seen both
Probably
movies.
not.
I know you have seen both movies. I've listened to the podcast.
Thank you for that. I mean, really, like maybe what you're are you like maybe this is a deep-seated like yearning for Megan Fox's "boy, my dad's a criminal," and this just looms over me. Maybe you want the complexity of John Turturro and his comedic stylings.
Based off of Michael Bay, apparently.
That would not surprise me one bit. John Turturro is that kind of guy. He would do that and then laugh all the way to the bank. Like, no, this is just wrong. These are very stock characters, but at least a couple of them have arcs. as opposed to Mark Wahlberg or Shia LaBeouf or his girlfriend from the third one, who's just a lingerie model put in front of a camera. Like, you are just categorically wrong in attempting to express your desire for more complex characters, which is fine. You can want that. You can point out that these are stock characters. You're overreaching horribly, and it just invalidates almost the totality of your perspective.
Speaking of which, this one I can read. George Thomas of the Akron Beacon Journal. No one could ever think that a movie about giant robots could ever beat the past 3 Transformers films for sheer awfulness. Think again. Yup. This one thinks this is worse than Transformers The Last Night, Transformers Age of Extinction, and whatever the one before that was.
Dark of the Moon.
Undiscovered Country. No, Dark of the Moon's the second one.
No.
No, the third one.
Oh, is
Revenge
it
of the Fallen is the second one.
Oh, that's
Revenge
right.
of the Fallen,
Right.
Dark of the Moon.
Right.
We have now put more thought into the Transformers movies than this guy did when he actually wrote this piece.
Agreed.
Want that out there. Again, like, if you're going to say this, did you actually suffer through The Last Night? Because I suffered. I suffered through poor Anthony Hopkins cashing a check. I suffered through a kung fu butler. I suffered, and I mean suffered, through endless, monotonous, repetitive action sequences. I suffered through Stanley Tucci running around Hong Kong. I suffered through Mark Wahlberg finding, inexplicably, the lone American football in the totality of China to throw at a guy who was following him as a callback to him being from West Texas and still sounding like he's from outside Boston and playing football in high school. No, I suffered. And you brain-dead Northeast Ohio jackass, have the temerity to equate these things? Piss off.
I know, like, this movie only has, like, imaginative action scenes, likable characters, and a coherent plot.
I know, right?
All of which The Last Night lacked. And I loved Age of Extinction. Have I mentioned that? All right, let's get to...
we yelled at each other about it for like 2 hours. It was
and
great.
then rebroadcasted it last year. All right, Lewis Knight of the Daily Mirror UK. Pacific Rim Uprising fails to enthrall with its weak script, dull action sequences, and forgettable characters. John Boyega, however, is certainly one of Hollywood's more interesting stars.
Okay, so in a vast multicultural cast, you deliberately single out the black guy?
Yep.
He was the lead.
I know. Like, setting aside my quasi-hatred of critics and their political posturing, yeah, Boyega's not too shabby. I do look forward to seeing more of him as his career continues to grow and progress. These are not unimaginative action sequences. Like, okay, the script isn't great, but it's also not the worst thing floating around the world.
Again, I say serviceable.
Yeah. Like, there are worse movies. Like, really, like, I have suffered through a lot of movies that were worse written than this. I can name 3 of them right now. I had to watch the Peter Pan movie. The most recent
that was bad. Ugh.
I watched the most recent King Arthur adaptation, which had all kinds of script problems. And I had to watch A Wrinkle in Time. All of which demonstrably worse scripts than this.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen Wrinkle in Time, so I can't comment.
Well,
You're not missing anything.
You are better off for not seeing it.
I'm kind of wait for it to pop up on Netflix or something.
I mean, you lived, I'm going to assume you lived through the early to mid-90s.
Yeah.
You have already seen Giant Oprah. You don't need to see it again.
You also don't need to see Reese Witherspoon turning into romaine lettuce.
That's true.
Actually, that does sound... When you put it like that, it doesn't sound so bad.
It really is. It takes like 2 minutes. That just drags and drags.
Yeah. And if you've ever seen romaine lettuce look at you with like a shit-eating grin, it's not pleasant. All right.
Yeah, I don't like it when my food looks back at me. It's a bit disconcerting.
I prefer it that way in some respects.
Okay.
Lee Munson of birth.movies.death. It seems the strain of being a loyal sequel and trying to be its own thing was too much for Uprising. As it tears itself apart, in the attempt and leaves bare the skeleton of the decent actioner that could have been.
Did you watch the movie?
Really? This
Like
is
that-
just a decent action movie. This is
That's-
just
that-
a bare bones decent action movie. That's literally all it is.
I was like the exact opposite opinion of her. I thought that it was actually like, yeah, this actually carries the torch pretty good.
Yeah, like that really makes almost no coherent sense if you've actually seen the movie. As far as no, it doesn't. This isn't struggling with its identity at all.
Like, listen,
no,
movie
we know
critics.
what we are.
Movie critics, you have one job. One job.
Yes.
To watch the movie. Put your phone down, get your notepad out, look at the damn thing until it's finished. Then write down what happened.
And please stop. Never mind. We'll get to somebody who's going to bring this up, I'm sure. And stop inserting your latest failed political op-ed into your movie review. It's really tiresome to read.
You know, not that anyone could hear it, but what I love about this review and last week's review is that no matter who I bring on this show, no matter what movie we're reviewing, every guest gets to the same point you do with these critics, where like you're all terrible at your job. Like it's not like we brought anyone on. Neither Jesse nor Ronnie last week, and now David this week are just like, guys, you're really too hard. Nope, you're all terrible.
Like, every time they mention something like, why didn't they explain this? It's like, well, they kind of explained that in the scene that they explained it in. Like, there was dialogue. You didn't even have to look at the screen. You gotta check your Twitter and Instagram while you're listening to, like, oh, okay, that's why they're doing that.
I have literally had that exact complaint about critics. Like, this isn't coherent. You mean except for this 20-minute series of expositions that you just clearly didn't pay attention to? Were you in the bathroom? Like...
All right.
It's nice to know that other people have reached the same conclusion that I have as far as critical analysis.
I understand. Like, not every movie is a good movie, and it sucks, but that's the job.
Jeremy, speaking of that's the job,
Walton, he would disagree with you.
Jeremy Johns of JeremyJohns.com. We hate you. Hates you, Jeremy Johns. We hates you.
Oh, you self-employed loser.
There's no jaw-dropping scene. The movie's biggest flaw is that it tries to do too much and it overreaches.
I thought they were pretty contained. Like, I don't think they went too crazy.
Okay, this guy did not actually watch the movie. This is one of those things that he had to review it, and he just pulled from a series of catchphrases and buzz. Like, these are sentences that I apply to things I don't like. I'm not actually going to watch it here. And there's about a 30% chance I'm going to be right. No, not in this case. You're wrong. There's no jaw-dropping sequences. Some of that is honestly just like viewer fatigue. And the totality of like grandiose things we have been exposed to, it makes it really hard to actually pull that off.
My jaw was sufficiently dropped during the ending sequence.
Okay.
Yeah, like that was good. I kind of wondered until they would stop like actually pulling buildings on top of the thing. It's like, it's not working, guys. New strategy, but
no, like the assemblage of the Mega Kaiju was pretty sweet, and then dropping Gypsy Avenger from orbit. I would have liked one like wide angle shot of it just entering the atmosphere, trailing like with like a comet trail behind it for perspective.
That would be good. I agree. That would have been a nice.
But like that's a real minor thing, and then like no, it overreaches. Really, it does. Like
no, like it's. I'm impressed that they kept it as small scale as they did.
Yeah, it's just robots punching either other robots or monsters. There's no overreaching here. You get that. You get very broadly drawn, but generally relatable characters, and big scale action sequences where robots fight. Like, that's a pretty simple ask of a movie. It's not really overreaching. There's not an attempt at anything beyond, hey, look, watch stuff fight. Like, I'm down. I can dig it.
I did like it a lot when they went to fix up the Jaegers and the original theme music kicked in. That was like, yeah, just
That's
Love
a
that
really nice
music.
piece of music. That is a really good. Like I
Yeah.
forget who did the music. For
It's
the
like
original.
Ramin Djawadi. I apologize, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. He also wrote the theme to Game of Thrones, so,
Yeah, like there's
what
that's
more
a
needs
really,
to be said?
There's some really solid music that went into that first one, and that they were able to kind of play off here. So
All right, Sarah Mars of Laney Gossip. Pacific Rim Uprising is the dumbest movie since Pacific Rim.
really, because hold on, wait, no, this must be countered. Pacific Rim came out in 2013. Okay,
Like, I'm sorry, but your autocorrect misspelled awesome.
no, you have now Volant said that this is dumber than at least one Adam Sandler movie. You have no credibility anymore. like Pixels came out between these two films.
I was gonna say,
really?
as soon as you said Adam Sandler, I'm like, wait a minute, that Pixels came out. That was by far dumber.
Like by every appreciable metric. I mean, you recently had, we had the Ghostbusters movie
That was brilliant.
come out between those. Shut up. It sucked, and you know it's not that.
It was a brilliant cinematic triumph.
We had what was that other really? We had Peter Pan. We had A Wrinkle in Time. We had
Batman v Superman.
okay, no. Well, let me say this. Oh, we had
Maleficent.
Dawn of Justice.
I remember when Maleficent came out. That was one of the first reviews we did in the second iteration of this show, and we all agreed there were parts of Maleficent that were okay, but overall it was a dumb movie.
Angelina Jolie saved that film.
Yeah.
Like,
God,
full points to her.
Frozen came out between these two, and Frozen is incredibly stupid. Great music, but incredibly stupid.
And the kids just love it.
Yeah.
I rest my case.
All right, Kiko Martinez.
Again, there are so many, visibly dumber movies that, that stupid one with, Ed Helms and Owen Wilson.
Which one?
Where they're
gotta narrow
trying
that
to
down a
find
bit.
their father.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know.
Was it literally just called Who's Your Daddy?
Maybe.
I think it was.
Yep, sounds about right.
Okay, really, if you're going to make a broad statement like that, you really have to understand the totality of ground you're covering.
Didn't the Bad Grandpa movies and Baywatch come out between Pacific Rim and now?
At least one of the Bad Grandpa movies. Certainly Baywatch.
All right, we got a few more of these, and then we're going to wrap up this bit and move on with life.
Otherwise, we'll be here forever just listing movies that are, again, visibly dumber than this.
I'm trying not to.
How about the Transformers? There were two of them.
Okay.
Both of which were significantly dumber than this movie. Whether you liked Age of Extinction or not, Mark, it is a very dumb movie.
All right, Emmanuel Baez of Cinephilus. Without any sense of urgency, the emotion is practically nil. The value of repetition is non-existent, and the film disappears from memory without any collateral effect.
I don't even know what that means.
Well,
What is he talking about?
I will somewhat give credence to the emotional content being not quite as there.
Yeah.
That's fair, and it's a very deliberate choice, I feel, by all parties concerned, to structure this film around the action rather than use the action as a augment to the interpersonal play, because there's some legitimate points of emotionality in the first one, because they structured it, again, the exact opposite, where they have these big action sequences, but they're deliberately used to offset interpersonal relationships, whereas it's, again, the other way around here. And if it fades from memory without leaving much of a mark, how is that a major crime? Not everything is going to be super memorable. Not everything is The Godfather. And while I wish everything was The Godfather, because The Godfather is great, the fact that not everything is not, just because it isn't doesn't inherently make it it's not some inherent crime to not be that. Again, we've gone over the structure and where the structure is sound here versus other films in loosely the same genre that don't actually have that. Like, not everything is going to be super memorable.
It's okay to like a movie because it's an intertextual film about man's relation to God and inhumanity to man. It's also nice to like a movie because it's about giant robots punching monsters in the face.
Yeah, the two things can be true at the same time. Like, I apologize to this person for their brain not being large enough to hold two disparate thoughts at the same time.
I think they just used an algorithm and a Mad Lib, personally.
That sounds about right.
A lot of... I'm going to steal that in the future when we talk about some of these reviews.
Go for it.
J.R. Kennard of Pop Matters. This is a sequel at odds with its own identity, fighting to avoid the schlocky excesses that it needs. Can I actually get through this? That it needs to be successful. By the time the fun finally arrives, all the little boys have taken their action figures and gone home. Now get them.
So,
Okay.
Did everybody leave the theater in the first 2 minutes? Sounds like he did.
Look, first of all, I hate that you used fun because, and I have to say this at least once a week when we do this, apparently, fun is subjective.
Art is subjective.
Yes. Well, I say fun in this case specifically because that gets thrown around a lot. Like, anytime I tell someone I don't like Thor Ragnarok, they just say, what, don't you like fun? Like, it makes me
Not
want to
that
punch
guy.
something. Like, again, like, I do not believe fun is this objective, quantifiable metric that we can use, and they throw it around like it is, and that really profoundly bothers me.
Okay, I see where you come from. Yeah, like fun is definitely subjective.
Like, oh, this movie's fun. Like, no, you had fun with this movie. That is not the same thing.
Oh, it was fun for you.
Yes,
and that's
like,
fine. Enjoy your movie.
like, this is why your political op-eds can't be published, because your actual understanding of structuring sentences is, like, doesn't work. You have utterly failed at basic writing comprehension.
All right, Matt Goldberg of Collider. We hate you, Matt Goldberg. We hate you. Pacific Rim Uprising is serviceable enough on its
I
own
used that
terms, but can't help feel like a pale imitation of the first movie.
Well, it's a sequel.
You know, this
Like,
is probably the closest
God.
to accurate review that you have read.
Still hate Matt Goldberg of Collider. Still hate Collider.
Like,
All right, fair enough.
He's using this as some kind of great pejorative. Like, it's a sequel. You want to know how many sequels you can name that are better than the original? There's like
Not many.
4.
Allison Schumacher of Consequence of Sound.
Oh.
This is probably going to be my favorite one, just because I know how you're going to react to this. So, so let me get a good stretch here. Let me get my popcorn, because this really is the get 'em Winfrey one of the night. What makes a fight compelling on screen isn't the motion of a punch. It's what spurs the punch, what the punch means, how it feels, and what happens after.
Okay. You have clearly never been in a fight, first of all. Like, for some reason, despite your apparent ineptitude at life, no one has actually struck you.
You do realize that this podcasting network is like founded on like UFC, right?
I know. Like, really? You want to tell? No. What makes a punch interesting is what inspires it. No, it's really how well the action is structured. Now, don't get me wrong. You can poorly structure it, and you can have it to the point where it bogs down an overall narrative. That's a very true thing. But let's take, for example, John Wick as a film. John Wick is setup, inciting event, and then about an hour of Keanu Reeves violently murdering people.
It's a kung fu movie.
Yes, with guns, which is great.
Yes.
But really, you can get, and this is why John Wick, and this applies more to John Wick 2, actually, now that I think about it, because there's significantly less inciting action from John Wick 2. It still works. Like, there is still the basic premise of I get to watch well choreographed, well executed action. That can be its own thing. You really don't need the other stuff. The other stuff is great. And the fact that it enhances that you should enhance action with drama is in a better film, in a more sophisticated outing, is very true. In this instance, the draw is watching robots punch monsters and other robots. The fact that they were able to structure the action so that it's visible, readable, followable, and engaging is a marked step up from, again, all of the Transformers movies.
Like, it's motivation. I understand they're trying to get about, like, the whole motivation of the fight. Like, it has to mean something that these people are fighting. I think they kind of took it to an extreme level, but, like, I understand why they're fighting. This robot killed his sister. These monsters are trying to kill the human race.
Yeah.
Therefore, we need to punch them until they stop.
If you only have two people fighting, that's fair. Like, you should have something. When the premise of your movie is giant monsters are trying to wipe out humanity, I'm kind of okay with that being the sum total of my motivation.
All right, last three, and then we're done here. Chris Stuckman of ChrisStuckman.com. We hate this is you, Chris Stuckman. We hate this is you.
Look, if he was any good, he'd be employed by someone other than Chris Stuckman.
DeKnight's considerable talent feels jilted by an aggressively commercial experience.
Shut up.
I'm not done. Uprising takes the Pacific Rim story and turns it into a brand.
Actually, I was kind of surprised by how little it turned it into a brand.
Yeah, like, no, there really was... I was shocked at the amount of restraint they had in trying to set up sequels and whatnot. Okay, let's start with DeKnight's theoretical talent. This is his first film.
Not bad for a first outing.
No,
Del Toro was looking over his shoulder, but...
Yes, and this film visibly, and it obviously lacks the directorial flair that Del Toro brings to these types of films.
Yep.
But this is just one... You know how many people have made one pretty good movie and then just flamed out? Because that's a long list. That's a really long list. And yet, from this, bare bones, you're willing to say that this man's considerable talent is wasted? Like, prior to this, his biggest thing was, what, executive producing Buffy? Hang on.
You do not want to say bad things about Buffy. Like,
I do, but I won't for the sake of polite conversation.
Yeah. No. I mean, not from me. Like, I'm cool. Like,
Season 4 sucks.
All right, hang on. Before we get into this.
Joss Whedon fans are a special breed.
DeKnight previously worked on
the kind
Smallville.
Of thing that he wouldn't have ruined Firefly if it had continued for another 3 seasons.
Firefly was the greatest piece of art ever created in the history of humanity, and that will ever be created in the history of humanity.
I like Firefly. Again, if you think that over the next 3 seasons he would not have absolutely ruined it, you are fooling yourself.
If only they had aired those episodes in a different order, people would have understood what a great towering achievement of artistic amazement that show was.
The truly sad thing, I have heard that from plenty of people in my real life.
You two are giving me.
I got it from.
You two are giving me a nosebleed. DeKnight previously worked on Smallville, Buffy, Angel. He also wrote Swell, a story in the Buffy the Vampire season 8.
Yeah, he's done. Again, he
series.
is primarily an executive producer and writer of.
He was a consulting producer on Dollhouse, and hey, this is important. In May 2014, DeKnight was reported to be taking over showrunning duties for the first season on the Netflix exclusive television series Daredevil from Drew Goddard. After Goddard's departure,
blame him for the uneven finish. Got it.
Due to scheduling conflicts with Sinister Six. Because
he was replaced for season 2.
He was later replaced by Doug Petrie and Marco Ramirez to serve as co-showrunner for the second season of the series.
Again, I am at least partially blaming him for the uneven finish to season 1 of Daredevil then. So thanks for ruining that for me, buddy.
Okay. Let's move this on. Because again, nosebleed. This might be my favorite one of the night. Donald Clark of the Irish Times. The one...
You just want me to insult the Irish again.
Every week. The one thing the world less needed than another Transformers film was another ersatz Transformers film.
No.
Can we just stop comparing these films to Transformers?
That would be nice, but really the last thing the world needs right now is another crappy film critic.
Oh wait, I was gonna read this next one because it would have made me laugh. But we have to hear from Mr. Roger Moore. We hates you, Roger Moore. We hates you.
Guy.
Of Movie
Still not as
Nation.
good as Connery.
Stupid. 150 million worth.
That's the sum total of your review?
Yep.
Like you are paid for this, you bloviating jackass.
Yeah, I can't follow that up with anything better.
How dare you cash that check? You are a man of zero integrity. You have no moral certitude, no internal fiber. You are a blight on the world.
I hope you have a Patreon so I don't have to donate to it.
Do we want to hear from another one of our top 10 worst critics that we've ever read from? Because we've got one here.
Means.
Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate, Mindless Metallic Mayhem.
Oh,
Yeah, that was great.
Someone got up to the alliteration portion there of their continuing education course for.
You're wrong, but I will give you a cookie for effort.
Oh, hey, Kurt Loder's weighing in from Reason Online, formerly of MTV News. You heard it first. Din, 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 din. There's no point in wondering if some other director could have done it better when it's crystal clear there was no need for it to be done at all.
Oh, this argument again.
There's a lot
There's
of them.
no need for it to be done at all. There's really no need for film in general. Much less for your... Which, of course, would have a huge negative consequence on your livelihood, because then there would be no need for morons like you to pretend that they know what they're talking about when reviewing film.
Matt Brunson... No, wait. Matt Brunson of Creative Loafing. A Jaeger bomb, but no worse than its humdrum predecessor.
Oh, you giant genius, you.
I'm honestly surprised it took us that long for someone to make that pun.
God knows I was looking for it.
I know, because you would have brought that up much earlier if you'd found it.
Yeah, I really would have. All right, yeah, and that's it. Of all the ones we typically read from, I mean, I could keep reading these. There were a lot. But
I'd rather you did.
I think we're done here. All right, next week, ready, steady, go. Ready Player One on the Damn You Hollywood. Hollywood, if she could. In the meantime... On prime time, tomorrow night on the Metal Hammer of Doom, we've got The Sword, Used Future. And then Thursday, we're going to do a special Screaming Boy panel discussion of the rise and fall of Toys R Us. It's a sad, sad departure for one of the icons of the shopping experience here in America. Toys R Us. We came, we saw, we kicked its ass. No. So
we filed Chapter 11.
we came, we saw, we went bankrupt. So it'll be Ronnie Adams will be hosting it on the Screaming Boy podcast. I'll be there. I think Jesse will be there. Anyone that wants to join and share their memories of the once great Toys R Us can come along and do that. If you're looking for some comic book material, yesterday on the Source Material podcast, we dropped our Superman: The Many Worlds of Krypton discussion. And that was because Krypton on Sci-Fi had just debuted, and so we were synergizing with that.
Synergy.
Indeed. Next week, it's all video games all the time here on the Rattlevision Broadcasting Network. First on the Source Material podcast, issues 1 through 6. The first half of year 1 of Injustice, Gods Among Us. The aforementioned Ready, Steady, Go, Player 1 on Damn You Hollywood. The Metal Hammer of Doom is going to review Power Glove, their debut album, Metal Combat for the Mortal Man. Came out many, many moons ago. We thought we'd get in the Wayback Machine and give it a review. And finally, if you're missing On Trial because Sean was doing that Twitch thing, don't worry, we got one on the back burner for you. This is our look at the original, not Legacy, but the original Walt Disney classic, Tron. So that's what we got coming up. That's what we got coming up. The following week, we've got a couple of shows dedicated to some wrestling. If you've been missing that since we haven't been uploading any of the shared content from WTM, we've got Source Material Ringside Volume 1, Kayfabe. And then we're going to do a TV party tonight for WrestleMania 34, the rechristening of Roman Reigns. And then the Metal Hammer of Doom is going to review
the Roman Empire falls again.
And then we'll be reviewing on the Metal Hammer of Doom, Camelot, the Shadow Theory. All right.
Can I say that the existence of Roman Reigns has like actively driven a lot of people I know away from wrestling?
I don't blame them. I don't watch it as much anymore. But we'll discuss that in a couple of weeks. David Wright, before I go over to Robert for his final plugs and to wish us all well, why don't you tell people where they can find you and whatever it is you're doing these days that you want to talk about?
Okay, well, not much worth finding right now, I'm afraid, but we'll see what happens there. So I guess I'll just once again plug my good friend and yours, Mr. Andrew Graham, and in reference to our conversation about the Transformers movies, I highly recommend you guys all check out Lindsay Ellis's YouTube series, The Whole Plate, where she does a serious, and I do actually mean serious, artistic film criticism of the Michael Bay Transformers movies.
Isn't she the one who brings up that there's a specific reason you can't actually remember anything associated with those films?
Yes, that's one of hers.
Yeah, I got a kick out of that.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen those, they're well worth checking out.
Well, she doesn't have to convince me that The Age of Extinction is a cinematic masterpiece. I already know that.
Mark, stop banging that drum, man.
Nope.
Yeah, play that horse sound effect again.
Here we go! There it is! All right. Robert Winfrey, speaking of dead horses.
Yeah, let me think.
Ugh.
I got my list here. Oh, okay. No, I just had to double check the dates. This Sunday, there will be an episode of the 411 Ground and Pound radio show. We will be previewing UFC 223. I am still, crossing everything that main event holds together. But, because the main event is... I am calling it just for the interim UFC lightweight championship because the UFC has not actually stripped Conor McGregor, and I don't think they will. But we might very easily end up with...
Did he say he was going to strip him? No, he didn't. Stop putting words in his mouth.
Next question.
Exactly.
Shut up, you fat, bald sack of crap. Mark, he doesn't want to be there anymore, and it's painfully obvious. He just knows he can't do anything else. But we will be previewing UFC 223. The main event is for the interim lightweight title. It is a fight that's been tried to make. They've tried to make this fight 3 times before, if not 4, between Tony Ferguson, who is your interim champion, and Khabib Nurmagomedov. I really want that fight to hold together because it's such a great fight. MMA doesn't get much better than that. The rest of the card, it kind of peters out. Your co-main event is a rematch between Rose Namajunas and Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the strawweight title. I think this fight's a massive waste of everyone's time. I think Joanna's going to move up to flyweight. And I think if Valentina Shevchenko weren't there, Joanna would probably rule that division. But Valentina Shevchenko is there, and therefore everyone loses to Valentina. You also have a featherweight bout between Renato Moicano and Calvin Kattar. They're both kind of unknown. That's not a bad fight. Michael Chiesa and Anthony Pettis is a pretty darn good fight. Ali Quinta and Paul Felder should be a lot of fun. And that's your main card. I have issues with some of the structuring of the rest of the card, but I don't put these things together. And then on the 7th, so not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday, we'll have live coverage of that. I will plug that again next week when we talk about Ready Player One. And then the week after, so that would be the 8th of April, we will be reviewing UFC 223, and I believe we will be previewing UFC on Fox 29. This is the violence card. The main event is Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, which is, I am so happy. And then the co-main event is Carlos Condit and Matt Brown, which is also, violence. I am irrationally happy about those 2 fights. That's going to be... that's actually 3 fights worth of action, because each one is a fight and a half. It's... that should be a lot of fun. So you can tune in for those. Thank you to everyone who voted for me in Fact or Fiction last week in the MMA Zona 411 Mania. I think I won, but I'm not sure. I was up against Dino. Like, Dino just doesn't lose, so I don't know. I'll know for sure, like, in the next couple of days when the next one comes up. But, again, we'll be back next week for Ready Player One, and I think that's everything I have to plug. So, on that note, for Mark and our good friend David, I'm Robert. Thank you all so very much for listening. Thank you for sharing us with your friends. If you know anybody who you think would be entertained by this, please point them in our direction. We are still trying to grow this thing. We don't make money yet. That is our goal. We want to actually monetize this. So please share us with your friends if you think they'd be interested. Helpful criticisms and critiques are always welcome as well. You can direct them to Mark Radulich. You can find him on Twitter
and YouTube.
At Mark Radulich.
Please go to YouTube. Call me a racist. It's fine.
Have you been called a racist yet on YouTube?
I sure have.
Hasn't everyone?
Nice. Was this the Ministry guys?
No, this was after I smirked and thought it was amusing that the singer from Baby Metal pronounced painkiller as painkira. And I had a good laugh about it, and I joked that that's the new name of the song. This is all the while saying how much I loved Baby Metal, and then got summarily accused of being a bully, a racist, and not a fan of Baby Metal. And then this cavalcade of social justice warriors needed to point out that Baby Metal rocks harder than I do. Which I hope they do. They're a heavy metal band. I'm a podcast. Let's just start there. But they're also world-renowned, and let's just say we're not.
Obscurity.
Yes, we toil in obscurity.
We toil in obscurity.
They let me on this show, guys. That kind of tells you everything you need to know right there.
Look, I never said I was the Rush Limbaugh show. So, I mean, I don't... you're not as popular as Baby Metal. You're absolutely right. That's not an insult. But, okay, sure.
And neither are you, random internet person. What's your point?
I should hope that millions and millions of people tune in to call me a racist every day like they do Rush Limbaugh. That's the goal.
I'm surprised no one said that about me yet. I don't understand. Because I tend to say worse things than you.
You need to get a video up on YouTube that tickles people's fancy. I didn't realize how popular on the internet Baby Metal was, and I have to say on the internet,
hugely popular.
On the internet, most of the world doesn't know who the fuck they are. Okay,
yeah, but again, the internet.
Yeah, the internet.
It's a self-contained ecosystem in many respects, and Baby Metal is big on the internet.
Indeed, it is. And might I say, for the billionth time in 2 weeks, I like Baby Metal.
And much like Bret Hart in Germany.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready to say goodnight, Gracie?
Good night, Gracie. Yeah, I think we're done, everyone. So again, thank you all again. We'll see you next week. Until then, please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.